One of the biggest challenges people face isn't that they don't work hard enough, or that they're not smart enough, or even that they don't have the opportunities. The real problem is most people are running west looking for a sunrise. They're expending all this energy. They're busy. They're active. They're hustling. Yet they still feel stuck, unsatisfied, unfulfilled. And do you know why? It's because they never took the time to get absolutely clear about what they truly want their life to look like. They never designed the blueprint. Clarity is power. Think about that for a second. If you don't know where you're going, how can you ever expect to arrive? It's like getting into a car, putting your foot on the gas, and just driving without a destination. Sure, you'll go somewhere, but chances are it won't be where you actually want to end up. That's what most people are doing with their lives. They're reacting to circumstances. They're living someone else's script. They're following the expectations of their family, society, their peers. And in the process, they forget the most important question of all. What do I really want? Not, what should I want? Not, what would look good on Instagram? Not, what will make my parents proud? No, I'm asking, what do you want? What would a life that lights you up, fulfills you, excites you, what would that really look like? See, without clarity, you can have all the resources in the world and still feel lost. You can make money and still feel empty. You can be surrounded by people and still feel alone. Because clarity isn't just about setting goals. It's about aligning your vision with your deepest values. It's about deciding what matters most and daring to declare it, even if it goes against what you've been told is possible. When I work with people, the first thing I do is get them to define their vision. And I don't mean vague nonsense like, I want to be happy. Happiness is beautiful, but it's too general, too blurry. I want specifics. What does happiness look like for you? Does it mean waking up with energy every morning? Does it mean traveling the world? Does it mean having the financial freedom to take care of your family without stress? Does it mean having deep, passionate relationships? If you can't see it, touch it, feel it in your imagination, how can you ever expect to create it in reality? I want you to imagine for a moment that your life is like a canvas. Right now, you may have brushstrokes all over the place, random colors, shapes, and patterns. But the masterpiece only comes alive when the artist has a vision. When they know what they're painting, when they see the picture before the brush ever touches the canvas, that's when the magic happens. Your life is the same. If you don't take the time to design in your mind first, you'll end up with a chaotic mess that doesn't inspire you. And here's the truth. Most people don't set a vision because they're afraid. They're afraid of being disappointed. They're afraid of failing. They're afraid of admitting what they really want because if they say it out loud, then they feel the weight of responsibility to actually pursue it. So they lower the bar, they shrink their dreams, they play it safe. But listen, safety doesn't create fulfillment. Playing small doesn't bring joy. You were not designed to simply survive. You were designed to live fully, to expand, to grow, to contribute, to thrive. So let me ask you, if I could hand you a magic wand right now, and you knew you couldn't fail, what would your life look like 5 years from today? What would your health look like? What kind of energy would you feel in your body? What kind of relationships would surround you? Deep love, connection, friendships that lift you higher? What would your career or business look like? Would you be financially free, doing work that excites you, or making an impact in a way that makes you proud? I want you to picture it so vividly that it feels real. Because clarity begins with vision, and vision begins with imagination. Now, once you've got that vision, something shifts inside you. You start to notice opportunities you would have ignored before. You start to feel pulled toward action instead of pushed. There's a different energy when you know where you're going. You stop settling for distractions. You stop wasting time. You start aligning your daily choices with that bigger picture. Because here's the secret. Your brain is like a heat-seeking missile. Once you give it a clear target, it will organize your thoughts, your emotions, and your actions toward hitting that target. But if the target is blurry, or worse, non-existent, then you wander, you drift, you hesitate. Clarity creates focus. Focus creates power. Power creates results. And results repeated over time create a life by design, not by default. So right now, I want you to feel into this moment. Don't think about what's practical. Don't limit yourself to what you think is realistic. Forget realistic. Realistic never built a dream. Realistic never inspired anyone. I want you to tap into the truth of what you want deep down if fear wasn't in the equation. Because clarity is not about probability, it's about possibility. It's about declaring the vision first, then figuring out the how later. Too many people get stuck because they try to figure out the entire plan before they even allow themselves to dream. Don't do that. The how will come once the what is clear. So make this commitment. No more vague living, no more drifting, no more hoping it all works out. From this moment forward, you decide, you choose, you design, you declare with absolute certainty the life you want to live. Because when you get clear, everything changes. That's the starting point of designing your life. Without it, nothing works. With it, everything becomes possible. Would you like me to keep expanding the next key point, standards and identity, in the same deep, high-impact style, so the whole speech flows as one powerful experience? Once you've got clarity about what you truly want, the next step is to ask yourself a very honest question. What kind of person do I need to become in order to live that life? Because the truth is, you don't get your goals, you get your standards. You don't live the life you want, you live the life you're willing to tolerate. Think about it. Every single one of us has standards we've accepted for years, often without realizing it. We've said, this is just the way it is. Maybe it's about your body. Maybe you've told yourself, I'm just not in shape. I've never been athletic. I guess I'll always struggle. That's a standard. Maybe it's about your finances. You say, oh, well, I'm just not good with money. I've always been in debt. It's just who I am. That's a standard. Maybe it's about relationships. You think, I guess love is supposed to fade. Passion isn't realistic. I should just settle for comfort. That's a standard. And here's the thing. You're always living in alignment with your standards, whether you realize it or not. If your standard is survival, you'll survive. If your standard is mediocrity, you'll achieve mediocrity. But if your standard is excellence, if your standard is growth, if your standard is to never settle, then your life rises to match. See, change doesn't start with willpower, and it doesn't start with discipline alone. Change begins when you raise your standards. When you say, I will not accept less than I am capable of. That moment, right there, is when identity shifts. And identity is the most powerful force in human behavior. We will always fight to stay consistent with who we believe we are. If you think you're someone who's lazy, you'll find ways to procrastinate. If you think you're someone who's unlucky in love, you'll sabotage your relationship. If you think you're someone who never follows through, you'll prove yourself right. But the moment you declare a new identity, I'm an athlete, I'm a leader, I'm financially free, I'm passionate, I'm unstoppable, and you back it with standards that demand action, everything begins to change. Let me give you an example. There are people who say, I need to quit smoking. And then there are people who say, I don't smoke. Do you see the difference? One is trying to change behavior. The other has already shifted identity. One is pushing uphill against old patterns. The other has already decided that it's no longer who they are. That's the power of identity. But here's the challenge. Many of us have let our environment, our past, or other people write our identity for us. We've let experiences define us instead of decisions. Maybe someone told you as a kid that you weren't good enough, and you carried that identity for years. Maybe you failed once or twice and made that failure mean something about who you are. But listen, your past does not equal your future. Your history is not your destiny. The moment you decide, you can redefine who you are. Raising your standards is about drawing a line in the sand and saying, this is no longer acceptable for my life. It's about creating a must. Because when something is a should, we'll find excuses. We'll say, I should lose weight, I should make more money, I should spend more time with my family. But when something becomes a must, when it becomes an absolute standard, you find the way. You don't need motivation. You need to breathe. It becomes non-negotiable. Think about the difference between someone who says, I should go to the gym versus someone who says, I must move my body every day because that's who I am. One relies on willpower. The other is living from identity. The first one will go when it's convenient. The second one will go because it's simply who they are, and anything less would be a betrayal of themselves. This is the secret. When you raise your standards, the world has no choice but to respond. Opportunities that once seemed invisible show up because your focus changes. People start treating you differently because you treat yourself differently. Your behaviors, your rituals, your habits All of it aligns with this new identity. And let's be clear, raising your standards is not about perfection. It's not about pretending you've got it all figured out. It's about deciding what you will no longer tolerate in yourself, in your environment, in your relationships. It's about saying, I love myself too much to keep living this way. Every breakthrough you've ever had in your life came from raising your standards. Think about it. Maybe there was a time you were broke and you finally said, enough. I will never live like this again. And you figured out a way to earn more, to save more, to create freedom. Or maybe you were out of shape. And one day you looked in the mirror and said, no more. This is not who I am. This is not who I am. And you shifted, you started taking care of yourself. That wasn't willpower, it was a standard shift. So let me ask you right now, what's an area of your life where you've been settling? Where have you been tolerating less than you know you deserve? And what would happen if tonight you decided that standard changes? Not tomorrow, not someday, tonight. Because in a moment, your entire destiny can shift if you raise the bar high enough and refuse to lower it again. Your standards are like the thermostat of your life. If the temperature drops below your standard, you'll find a way to heat it up. If it goes above and you don't raise the standard, you'll sabotage yourself to cool it down. But when you lock in a higher standard and you reinforce it every single day, you elevate your life permanently. This is not theory. This is reality. The life you're living right now is a reflection of your standards and your identity. And if you don't like what you see, you have the power to change it. Not next year, not next month, right now. Because the moment you raise your standards, the moment you shift your identity, you unleash a new force within you that can create extraordinary results. That's how you build a life that matches your vision. It starts with clarity, but it comes alive when you demand more of yourself, when you refuse to settle, when you declare, this is who I am now. Once you've got clarity, once you've raised your standards and shifted your identity, the next piece is where the rubber meets the road. Because vision without action is just a daydream. Identity without action is just a story you tell yourself. What transforms your life is not just what you see in your mind or what you declare about yourself. It's what you do consistently every single day. I've seen people spend years perfecting their vision boards, writing affirmations, talking about their goals, and yet nothing changes. Do you know why? Because clarity gives you direction, identity gives you power, but strategy and action give you momentum. And momentum is the force that turns possibility into reality. Now let me tell you something. Most people overestimate what they can do in a year, and they underestimate what they can do in 5 or 10. They want everything now. They want the body now, the business now, the relationship now, trip now. And when it doesn't show up instantly, they lose faith, they quit, they go back to the same old patterns. But life doesn't reward the person who dabbles. It rewards the person who commits and keeps moving, no matter how small the steps seem in the moment. That's why strategy is key. Once you've got a vision, you've got to break it down into bite-sized pieces that can be executed. Otherwise, the dream feels overwhelming, impossible. It's like standing at the bottom of a mountain and staring at the peak. If you focus only on the peak, you'll paralyze yourself. But if you focus on the next step, and then the next, and then the next, you'll get there. Not overnight, but inevitably. And here's the trick. Action is not just about doing more. It's about doing the right things consistently. It's about knowing what's essential and doubling down. Most people fill their days with busyness, confusing activity with progress. But activity doesn't equal achievement. You can run in circles all day long and end up in the same spot. The key is taking massive action that's aligned with your vision and your standards. Let me give you an example. Your vision is to transform your health. You could read every nutrition book, watch every workout video, talk to every expert, but none of that will matter unless you actually lace up your shoes, step into the gym, and move your body. You don't need a perfect plan to start. You need to start. And now, perfection is the enemy of progress. You'll refine the strategy along the way, but nothing happens until you take that first action. And once you act, you create momentum. Momentum is magical. It shifts your psychology, it fuels your energy, it builds confidence. Suddenly, what once seemed impossible becomes inevitable simply because you took that first bold step. You don't have to see the whole staircase. You just need to step on the first stair. Now, let's talk about rituals, because this is where real strategy lives. Your life doesn't change because of what you do once in a while. It changes because of what you do consistently. Daily rituals are what separate those who succeed from those who merely wish. If you want an extraordinary life, you need extraordinary standards backed by extraordinary rituals. What do you do every morning to prime your mind and body for success? What do you do every evening to reflect, reset, and prepare for tomorrow? These small, consistent actions build the foundation for everything else. If you study anyone who's achieved greatness, whether in business, athletics, the arts, or contribution, you'll see the same thing. They all had rituals that aligned with their vision. They didn't just hope things would work out. They created structures that made success inevitable. And you can do the same. Another piece of strategy is this. You've got to be willing to adjust. Some people create a plan, and when it doesn't work, they throw up their hands and say, I guess it's not meant to be. No. Winners don't quit the game, they change the strategy. If something doesn't work, you learn, you pivot, you adapt, and you keep going. The only way to fail is to stop moving. And let's be real, massive action doesn't mean you'll always feel like doing it. There will be days when you're tired, days when you doubt yourself, days when it feels like nothing's happening. But that's when identity and standards kick in. You don't act because you feel like it. You act because it's who you are. You act because you've decided this is non-negotiable. You act because momentum matters more than mood. I want you to think about something. Imagine pushing a giant boulder. At first, it feels impossible. You strain, you sweat, you push with everything you've got, and the thing barely moves an inch. But if you keep pushing, if you stay consistent, eventually that boulder starts to roll. And once it's rolling, it develops its own force, its own momentum. Suddenly, it's not so hard anymore. It's almost effortless. That's what happens when you take strategic, consistent action in your life. The hardest part is starting. The second hardest part is staying consistent long enough for momentum to build. But once it does, the game changes forever. So ask yourself, what's one action you've been avoiding that you know would move you closer to your vision? What's the one thing, if you did it daily, would completely transform your results? Don't wait until you have the perfect moment. Don't wait until you feel ready. Start now. Start messy. Start imperfect. Because once you start, you'll build the muscle. And once you start, you'll never go back. Remember this. Clarity gives you the target. Identity locks in who you are. But only strategy and action will get you there. And when you commit to consistent, strategic action, you become unstoppable. So they lie. Do you want me to now expand key point 4 with the same depth and energy, so the entire speech feels complete and fully connected? You can have the clearest vision in the world. You can raise your standards so high. They change your identity. You can even take bold action every day. But if your energy is low, if your state is weak, if your environment is working against you, you will burn out. Because life isn't just about strategy. It's about state. It's about managing the inner fuel that drives everything you do. And it's about shaping the environment around you so success becomes inevitable, not exhausting. Think about it. Have you ever had days where nothing changed on the outside, but your energy was through the roof? You felt alive, focused, powerful, creative. On those days, you accomplish more in a few hours than most people do in a week. That's not luck. That's state. And the opposite is true too. You can have the perfect plan, the perfect tools, the perfect opportunities, but if you're exhausted, if you're drained, if your energy is flat, nothing happens. You hesitate, you procrastinate, you make excuses. So the question becomes, how do you create energy on demand? How do you put yourself in a peak state consistently so you can follow through on your vision, your standards, your strategy? The answer is, you design it. You don't wait to feel good, you create the feeling. Through your physiology, through your focus, through your rituals, motion creates emotion. If you slump your shoulders, breathe shallow, stare at the ground, your energy collapses. But if you stand tall, breathe deeply, move your body with intensity, your energy rises instantly. It's not magic, it's science. Energy is the foundation of execution. And energy isn't just physical. It's emotional, it's mental, it's spiritual. What you feed your mind matters just as much as what you feed your body. If you constantly consume negativity, if you surround yourself with people who drain you, if you fill your mind with fear and limitation, how can you possibly stay in a peak state? But if you train your focus, if you feed yourself empowering thoughts, if you read, listen, and immerse yourself in growth, you build inner fuel that sustains you through any challenge. And here's something most people miss. Environment is either your greatest ally or your greatest enemy. You don't need more willpower. You need a better environment. If your fridge is full of junk food, no wonder your health suffers. If your desk is full of distractions, no wonder your focus is scattered. If your circle of friends is full of complainers, no wonder your dreams feel heavy. But if you design an environment that aligns with your vision, suddenly success requires less effort. You don't have to fight yourself every day. You just flow. Look around your life right now. Does your environment match the life you're designing? Does it pull you forward or does it pull you down? Because here's the truth. You become like the people you spend the most time with. If you surround yourself with people who are growing, who are driven, who believe in possibility, you rise. If you surround yourself with people who are stuck, who are bitter, who constantly make excuses, you sink. Energy is contagious. Environment is destiny. That's why community matters so much. We are not designed to do this alone. You need people who hold you to your higher standard, who remind you of your vision when you forget, who celebrate your wins and challenge your excuses. You need mentors, peers, partners, a tribe that lifts you higher. Because when the storm comes, and it will, you'll need the strength of that environment to keep you moving forward. Now, let's connect it back. You have clarity, you have standards, drive strategy. But none of that will last if you don't protect your energy and design your environment. Because life will test you. Stress will come. Distractions will come. Doubts will come. And when they do, the person who succeeds isn't the one who never feels tired, never feels fear, never feels overwhelmed. It's the one who knows how to shift their state, how to feed their mind, how to recharge their energy, and how to lean on an environment that supports their vision. I want you to imagine this. Every single day you wake up, and instead of dragging yourself out of bed, you jump into action because your rituals, your energy, your surroundings make it automatic. You walk into spaces that inspire you. You're surrounded by people who fuel you. Your body feels alive because you've conditioned it with movement and nutrition. Your mind feels sharp because you feed it with growth. And your spirit feels connected because you're aligned with something bigger than yourself. Imagine living from that place. Imagine the force you would carry into every area of your life. This is the final piece of designing your life. It's not just about dreaming, not just about demanding, not just about doing. It's about sustaining. And you sustain by mastering energy and environment. Without this, you'll burn out. With this, you'll become unstoppable. So make a decision tonight. What's one ritual you can add to elevate your energy? Maybe it's moving your body first thing in the morning. Maybe it's journaling gratitude every night. Maybe it's meditating or breathing or dancing or whatever shifts your state. And what's one change you can make in your environment right now? Maybe it's cleaning out the junk food. Maybe it's decluttering your workspace. Maybe it's spending less time with people who drain you and more with people who inspire you. Small shifts lead to massive results over time. Energy is everything. Environment shapes everything. When you master both, your vision becomes unstoppable. Your standards stay alive, your strategy keeps building, and your life begins to match the design you've created. That's how you build not just a life you want, but a life you're proud of. Oh.